The harsh, unmistakable crackle of a taser shattered the otherwise calm afternoon air, immediately followed by a piercing yelp that struck a primal chord deep within the old man's chest. "No, Buster," he gasped, his voice a ragged whisper of disbelief and pain. He stumbled forward, his worn jacket fluttering around his thin frame, as his beloved golden retriever, his loyal companion, collapsed onto the concrete apron of the fire station, limbs twitching in sickening spasms. Young firefighter, his face twisted into a smug expression, casually holstered the device. "Keep that animal under control, old man," the firefighter sneered, his voice thick with disdain. "This is city property, not your personal dog park." The old man, frail and trembling, his face pale as ash, could only stare, clutching a faded leather-bound photograph so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The world seemed to tilt. The sounds of the city street, distant sirens, the rumble of traffic, the chatter of passers-by, all faded into a dull roaring tinnitus. His dog, his Buster, was hurt. If you believe in honoring those who served, those who walk among us bearing invisible scars, comment respect. His name was Elias Vance, though few in this bustling, indifferent city would have known it, or cared. He was a relic of a forgotten era, his shoulders stooped not only by age, but by burdens carried for decades. 78 years had carved deep lines into his face, a roadmap of a life lived through trials that would have broken lesser men. He moved with a stiffness, a subtle hitch in his left leg that spoke of grievous old injuries. His clothes, though clean, were threadbare and patched in places with a neatness that suggested a careful, solitary existence. Elias lived in a small fourth-floor walk-up apartment a few blocks away, a place filled with memories and the quiet companionship of Buster. Buster, with his gentle eyes and unwavering loyalty, was more than just a pet. He was Elias's service. Animal, a lifeline tethering him to the present, a warm presence against the chill of haunting recollections. Officially, Buster assisted Elias's mobility, bracing him on difficult days. But unofficially, the dog was his confidant, his guard against the shadows that sometimes crept in during the lonely hours of the night. That afternoon, they had been taking their usual slow, meandering stroll, a path that often led them past the bright red doors of Fire Station 17. Elias had always admired firefighters, their bravery, their camaraderie, and he would often pause to watch them drill, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. But today, that quiet admiration shattered into a million jagged pieces of sharp, agonizing betrayal. Buster, usually so placid, had spotted a squirrel darting from beneath a parked car. In a rare burst of instinct, he tugged the leash from Elias's momentarily loosened grip, trotting a few playful steps onto the station's driveway before Elias could even utter a command to return. It was a fleeting, harmless moment, yet it was met with aggression that stunned him to his core. The young firefighter, whose name tag read Ali, puffed out his chest, clearly enjoying the sudden drama, the assertion of his minor authority. Rules are rules. Grandpa, dogs have to be leashed, especially ones that look like they might be carrying something. His eyes flicked dismissively over Buster, who was now whimpering, the convulsions easing but leaving him weak and disoriented. Elias knelt beside his friend, his arthritic knees protesting, his hands shaking as he gently stroked Buster's head. "He's a service dog," Elias managed, his voice shaky. "He just got startled. He wouldn't hurt anyone." He reached into his pocket, fumbling for the laminated ID card that declared Buster's status. The card he always carried. Ali let out a short, derisive laugh. "Oh, a service dog, is it? Funny. He doesn't look like he's servicing much of anything right now, except that patch of concrete. Anyone can buy those vests online, you know." Two more firefighters, younger like Ali, emerged from the station, bay drawn by the commotion. One leaned against the brick wall with arms crossed and a smirk playing on his lips. The other, slightly older, looked more concerned but said nothing, clearly unwilling to challenge his colleague. "Look, just get your animal and move along before we call animal control to see if he's even got his shots," Allie continued, his tone hardening. "We've got actual work to do here." A cold dread seeped into Elias's bones. Animal control. The thought of Buster being taken away, prodded, and caged was unbearable. "Please," he pleaded, his gaze shifting from Allie's callous face to the other firefighters, searching for a spark of empathy. "He needs help. You heard him." His voice cracked under the sheer injustice threatening to overwhelm him. The faded photograph in his other hand felt heavy, a tangible link to a past where such blatant disrespect and cruelty would have been unthinkable. The tension on the driveway thickened, an almost visible miasma of hostility and fear. Elias tried again, his voice trembling but firm. "He's a registered service animal. He assists me with mobility and other things." There was no need for that device. He was coming right back. He held up Buster's bright blue service vest, which had slipped slightly askew during the fall. "See? It's clearly marked." Allie barely glanced at it. "Marked? So what?" "That means nothing if the dog's aggressive or out of control, and he was off-leash on our property." He tapped his foot impatiently. "Are you deaf, old man?" I said, "Move it." The other smirking firefighter chimed in, "Yeah, Gramps, you're creating a public nuisance. Don't you have a park to go to?" Elias flinched as if struck. "Gramps, old man or public nuisance?" The words pelted his dignity like stones. He looked down at Buster, whose breathing was shallow, his eyes clouded with pain and confusion. A wave of helplessness washed over Elias, so profound it nearly buckled his knees. He was alone, an old man with a hurt dog facing down the casual cruelty of youth and unformed power. He could feel the stares of passers-by, some curious, some disapproving, none offering aid. His heart hammered in his chest like a frantic bird trapped in a cage of aging ribs. A familiar tightness, a pressure, built behind his sternum. He fumbled in his other pocket for the small vial of nitroglycerin pills he always carried, his fingers clumsy and unresponsive. The photograph, still clutched in his other hand, slipped from his grasp, falling open onto the grimy concrete. It landed face up, a silent testament. The small leather-bound photograph lay stark against the gray, showing a much younger Elias, barely 30, his face unlined, vibrant, full of fiery determination. He wore a dress uniform, not military, but the deep blue of a firefighter, medals gleaming on his chest. Standing beside him, one hand resting on his shoulder, was another man, older, with kind eyes, and the insignia of a fire chief on his collar. It was a moment frozen in time, a celebration of courage and survival, yet no one noticed it. Not yet. Elias, gasping slightly, finally managed to retrieve his pill vial, his focus entirely on the small white tablet he was attempting to place under his tongue. Just then, a sleek black SUV with official city markings quietly pulled up to the curb, parking slightly behind the small crowd gathered. The passenger door opened, and a man stepped out, whose very presence commanded immediate attention. He was tall, in his late 50s, with neatly cut silver hair. His uniform was crisp, decorated with the multiple stars of a battalion chief. This was Chief Frank Wallace, a man known throughout the department for his unwavering standards, stern demeanor, and deep respect for the history and traditions of the service. He was on a routine station visit, slightly ahead of schedule. Chief Wallace took in the scene before him, the distressed old man, the dog lying on the ground, the group of firefighters, and the smug expression on O'Malley's face, his brow furrowed. Something about this felt wrong, deeply wrong. His gaze swept the ground and caught on a fallen photograph. He took a step closer, then another, his eyes narrowing. A sudden sharp intake of breath escaped him. Chief Wallace froze, his eyes locked on the photograph. Slowly, almost fearfully, he lifted his gaze to stare at the old man struggling to stand, one hand still protectively resting on his dog, The chief's face, usually ruddy and authoritative, paled. Recognition warred with disbelief, then gave way to dawning horror. "Elias," he breathed, the name a reverent whisper, yet it was heard in the sudden, curious silence that had fallen. He strode forward, pushing past the bewildered Ali. "Elias." "Vance. Captain Vance, is that really you?" The use of captain sent a ripple of confusion through the younger firefighters. Ali looked from the chief to the old man, his smirk faltering, replaced by dawning unease. Elias, his eyes clouded with pain and the effects of the nitroglycerin, looked up at the imposing figure. He recognized the face, though it was etched with more years than he remembered. "Frank," he murmured weakly. "Frank Wallace? Is that you? Son?" Chief Wallace's expression was a maelstrom of emotions. He knelt, not by the dog, but by the photograph, picking it up with reverence that silenced any remaining whispers. He stared at it for a long moment, then looked at Elias, his eyes now suspiciously bright. Rising, he turned to his firefighters, his voice no longer a whisper but a clap of thunder that seemed to shake the very foundations of the station. "Do you have any idea who this man is?" he roared, his gaze sweeping over Ali and the others like a physical blow. They flinched, standing straighter, apprehension dawning on their faces. "This," Wallace declared, his voice thick with emotion as he gestured toward Elias, "is Captain Elias Vance, retired, the man who, 35 years ago, entered the inferno at the Ashton textile mill when everyone else said it was a lost cause, the fire that nearly took Engine 5 and all her crew. He went in, knowing the roof was about to collapse." Wallace's voice cracked. "He pulled 3 children out, 3, and then he went back in for Lieutenant McGregor and firefighter Rossi. When they were trapped by a collapsed beam, he got them out, but the floor gave way as he shielded Rossi. It cost him his leg, part of his lung, and nearly his life." Wallace paused, his eyes boring into Ali. "The Vance maneuver for rescuing down firefighters in compromised structures, the one you all learned in the academy, it's named after him." He pointed to Buster, who now tried weakly to lift his head. "That dog is his lifeline, helping him cope with the job we all swore to do, put him through. He earned more respect in one shift than any of you have in your entire careers." The silence that followed Chief Wallace's words was absolute, broken only by the distant, mournful wail of an ambulance. The faces of the firefighters, especially O'Malley's, had drained of all color. Shock, shame, and dawning comprehension warred for dominance in their expressions. Ali looked as if he'd been punched in the gut, his earlier arrogance completely deflated, replaced by utter horror. He stared at Elias, then Buster, then the chief, his mouth opening and closing silently, no words forming. The other young firefighter, who had smirked now, looked at the ground, his ears burning red. Even the slightly older one, who had remained passive, seemed to shrink under the weight of the revelation. Chief Wallace wasn't finished. His fury, though controlled, was palpable. "You tased his service dog?" he asked, his voice dangerously low, each word precise and laden with condemnation. "You harassed a hero of this department? A man whose photograph, taken with my own father, then Chief Wallace Sr." He held up the picture for all to see. "It used to hang in the main hall of every firehouse in this city as an example of selfless bravery." He shook his head, a look of profound disappointment settling on his features. "What in God's name has happened to the honor of this station?" Elias, leaning heavily against the brick wall for support, finally spoke. His voice was still, weak but clear. His concern wasn't for himself or the disrespect he had endured. "Frank," he said, looking at his old friend, a flicker of the captain he once was in his eyes. "The boy, he didn't know. He's just young. But Buster needs a vet, please." The simple, selfless plea seemed to hang in the air, a stark contrast to the heated emotions of the moment. It was a quiet reminder of Elias Vance's true character, courage wrapped in humility, strength tempered by compassion. Ali finally found his voice, a choked, stammering sound. "Sir Chief, Captain Vance, I didn't. I am so sorry. I didn't understand." His eyes were wide, reflecting deep personal shame that was almost painful to witness. He took an involuntary step back, as if wanting to disappear. The atmosphere shifted instantly at Elias's plea for Buster. "Right," Chief Wallace snapped, his focus immediately sharpening. "Oh, Molly Johnson, get the trauma kit from Engine. 17, Peterson, call Dr. Evans. Tell her it's an emergency, a service animal code 3. Tell her Chief Wallace is requesting her immediate assistance here at the station. We'll stabilize him until we can transport." The firefighters jolted. From their stunned paralysis, scrambled to obey, their movements almost frantic in their sudden desire to make amends. Allie, his face a mask of guilt, was the first to move, practically sprinting toward the engine. Within moments, they were back, a medical kit open on the ground beside Buster. Elias, guided gently by Chief Wallace, knelt murmuring soft reassurances. To his dog as the firefighters, whose earlier arrogance was replaced by anxious concern, began assessing Buster under the chief's watchful eye. The station captain, a man named Davies who had been on a call and just returned, rushed out, his face etched with alarm as he took in the scene. Chief Wallace, a legendary retired captain looking frail and distressed, and his men working on a service dog. "Chief," Wallace quickly and grimly briefed him on the situation. Captain Davies listened, his expression growing more horrified with each word. When Wallace finished, Davies approached Elias, his face pale. "Captain Vance," he began, his voice filled with remorse. "Sir, on behalf of Fire Station 17 and myself personally, I am profoundly sorry. There is no excuse for what happened. Here today, none. This is a failing on my part as a leader. We will cover all veterinary expenses, of course, and whatever else you and Buster may need." Elias simply nodded, his gaze fixed on Buster, whose tail gave a weak thump as Elias stroked his fur. Then something extraordinary happened. Chief Frank Wallace, a man of considerable rank and presence who commanded hundreds, turned to face Elias Vance. Slowly, deliberately, he went down on one knee, his head bowed, not in supplication, but as a gesture of profound, almost unbearable respect. Captain Davies, witnessing this, did not hesitate. He too dropped to one knee beside his chief. One by one, the other firefighters present, Peterson, Johnson, the young man who had smirked, even the paramedics who had just arrived with a gurney for Buster, followed suit. Soon every uniformed person on that concrete apron was kneeling, a silent, solemn tribute to the quiet hero they had so grievously misjudged. Ali was the last. He approached Elias hesitantly, his eyes shining with unshed tears. He knelt lower than the others, his forehead almost touching the ground. "Captain Vance," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, "Sir, I was wrong. I was arrogant and cruel. I am so deeply ashamed. Please, please forgive me." Elias looked at the young man, his expression softened by weary understanding. He reached out a trembling hand and placed it briefly on Amali's shoulder. "It takes a strong man to admit his mistakes, son," he said softly. "Learn from this. Treat everyone with respect. You never know the battles they fought. Buster, thanks to the swift action and expertise of Dr. Evans, who arrived within minutes, made a full recovery. The taser's effects, while traumatic, caused no lasting physical damage. The fire department, true to Captain Davies's word, covered every cent of the veterinary bills and arranged a professional grooming session for Buster, along with a supply of his favorite treats. But the changes went far deeper than that. The incident at Station 17 became a catalyst. Chief Wallace and Captain Davies spearheaded a new citywide training initiative for all first responders, focusing on de-escalation techniques, recognizing service animals, and, crucially, interacting with veterans and elderly citizens with dignity and understanding. It was unofficially dubbed the Buster Protocol by some of the younger firefighters, a name that brought a rise of a smile to Chief Wallace's face. The shame Allie felt that day became a transformative force. He requested a transfer to the department's Community Outreach Division, where he dedicated himself to programs for at-risk youth and veterans, often sharing his own story as a cautionary tale about the dangers of judgment and the importance of humility. He became one of the most compassionate and respected members of his team. The story of Captain Elias Vance and his service dog Buster served as a stark, poignant reminder that heroes often don't wear their accolades on their sleeves. They walk among us, quiet and unassuming, their greatness hidden beneath the patina of age or humble circumstances. True honor isn't found in bluster or authority, but in the silent strength of character, in sacrifices made and battles endured, often far from the public eye. The respect Elias Vance was shown that day, culminating in that powerful image of firefighters on their knees, was not just an apology, it was an awakening. It was recognition of the profound debt owed to those who have served in whatever capacity, and a lesson in looking beyond the surface to see the true measure of a human being. A few weeks later, Fire Station 17 hosted a small, informal barbecue. The guest of honor was Captain Elias Vance, with Buster sporting a new bright blue service vest, a gift from O'Malley, sitting proudly by his side. The atmosphere was warm, filled with genuine camaraderie. Allie himself made sure Buster's water bowl was always full and that a few char-grilled, vet-approved burger bits found their way to the happy retriever. Chief Wallace was there, sharing old stories with Elias, their laughter echoing through the station bay where not long ago such a different scene had played out. A new small plaque had been installed in the station's common room. It didn't feature Elias's name directly, but it read, "Dedicated to those who came before, whose courage forged our legacy. May we always see with eyes of respect and act with hearts of humility." Beside it, someone had pinned a copy of that faded photograph, a young, determined Elias Vance standing beside a proud Chief Wallace Sr., a quiet tribute to a living legend and a constant reminder of the day Station 17 learned a profound lesson. The true value of a person is not in their outward appearance or current station, but in the content of their character and the quiet echo of their deeds. They took a knee that day, but in doing so, they rose higher in character than they had ever stood before. If these words resonate with the respect that every individual, especially those who have quietly served, deserves, subscribe to Hidden Sparks for more stories that honor the unseen and uplift the spirit. Type honor if you believe in the enduring strength of quiet dignity,